Hi, I'm Michael, and if you've attended any of our CH50 Accounts webinars before, you might recognise my voice. Throughout March, we're running our next Digital Badge webinar series. This series helps you to get to grips with invoicing, improves your knowledge, and boosts your confidence when using CH50 accounts. There are 6 different topics, each one being run twice so that you have the opportunity to attend. Sessions include the creation of product invoices and processing credit notes. We'll demonstrate how to add your company logo and your bank details to your invoices, so they not only look the part, but also help you to get paid. There's also more advanced topics such as understanding the discount options that are available. Attend any 5 of the 6 topics, plus one of our quiz sessions to test your knowledge, and you'll earn your digital badge. To check the topics, dates and times, and to register for your free place, head along to sage.co.uk/webinars. I hope to see you there.
Hi everybody. If you're looking to streamline your day-to-day bookkeeping and keep your accounts accurate with less manual work, now is the perfect time to get familiar with bank feeds in Sage 50 accounts. We're running a 2-part webinar series that will guide you through everything you need to know, from getting set up to confidently managing your reconciliations. In part 1, we'll focus on the essentials to get you up and running with bank feeds. We'll walk you through connecting your bank to Sage 50 accounts. Following that, we'll look at how to use the auto match option, which saves you time, and learn how Sage automatically matches your transactions. We'll then move on to manually matching transactions and show you how to create Sage transactions directly from the bank feeds window based on your imported transactions from your bank without needing to leave the bank feeds window. This keeps your workflow fast, tidy, and all in one place. We'll explain how to review your approved match transactions and exactly what to look out for and how to keep everything accurate. We'll complete part 1 by demonstrating how bank feeds integrate into your reconciliation process. Part 2 covers creating and setting up rules. These are used to automatically process transactions as they download from your bank. You can create up to 300 rules for each bank account, so this can be a great time saver and where bank feeds really comes into its own. These are sessions all about giving you confidence while saving you time and keeping your accounts up to date with less effort. Join us live where we'll be hosting both webinars with demonstrations and practical guidance throughout. Don't miss this opportunity to make your bank reconciliation faster, smarter and easier. Reserve your place today at sage.co.uk/webinars, and we look forward to seeing you there. Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. I hope everybody's well today and having a good day so far. Today's webinar is all about clearing out old records that are no longer in use. And this time we're going to be concentrating on clearing out old invoices, orders and quotations. My name's Laura. I'm going to be the host for today's session, and we've also got Michael in the background who's waiting for any questions that you may have around this topic. As always, we will prioritise the questions around deleting those types of records there. If you do have any questions, make sure you get them popped in. Anything we don't get answered, though, obviously we would get back to you via email after. So as always, before we get started, just some housekeeping rules there. So your mic will be muted automatically, but you'll see there is a little question icon on the toolbar there, so you can submit any questions that you've got. And I will be including the slides in the handout section, as there are some links at the end which you may find useful. So if you do want to download those, make sure you do that during the session, and there is that printer-friendly version as well, just if you want to make those notes. So as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at clearing out old invoices, orders, and quotations today. So those are the ones that you no longer require in your live data. I'm going to go through some demonstrations around this as well, so we can see what that looks like in the program and answer any questions that you may have too. As I say, anything we don't get answered live today, I will get an email over to you after the live session, so don't worry, you won't be missed out there. And as I say, there are the links there as well on the guide. So if you do want to use those links, make sure you just download those during the session so you can use them. So why should you look at clearing out your old records? So clearing out records, it's a completely optional task. It's not something that you have to do, but it just ensures that your data that you use on a day-to-day basis is just up to date. So having just the relevant data can make things like your searches and your filters work more efficiently for you. Clearing out the older data can also speed up general processing as well in the software in some cases. Now, what I will say is that if you are experiencing speed issues, please bear in mind that there could be external environmental factors also impacting processing speeds, such as things like the setup of how you've got your data set up. If the data is local or if it's on a server, or if the speed of the computer that you're using is a bit slower as well. But if you've got lots of data, that's also going to contribute to that as well. Like I said, though, this is an optional task. You don't have to do this, but the cons to this task is that it removes the information from your live data. So you need to think about how far back you want to go with that live data there. Now, remember, you can still get a hold of your old data. So if you do clear out your old records on there, you will be taking a backup before you do anything. And we always recommend taking an archive as well. So, but it is worth thinking about how far back you want to go with that live data. For compliance purposes, you would always need to have the data in the form of a backup or an archive anyway. So you don't need to be holding on to, say, 10 years worth of data in your records, in your live data. It's just worth having to think about. Yes, it's deleting the records, but you can still access them if you need to. So before any big changes are made, like deleting records, we always recommend taking a backup of your data. Just means that you have all that information that you're going to be removing in the way of a backup. We also recommend taking an archive of the company data too. And the archive's a bit different to a backup, and then it's a read-only copy of your data that you can go into without having to restore a backup in. So if you've got a large data set, if you think about how long it might take to restore a backup in, you can pop into an archive. It's a bit like opening another company. But I am running a webinar on the company archive in more detail tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So the sign-up's just on the link on the slide there for you. But I am going to go into just show you just a brief demo on creating an archive and viewing it, because if you haven't deleted anything before, it can just feel a bit daunting. And I just want to show you that you can still view your deleted records easily in an archive as well. So I'll pop into my program and just open that first of all, just to show you how you can take an archive there. So like I say, you'd be taking a backup. So standard backup, you'd just be going to File, going to Backup, just tells you it's going to close all the other windows, and you've got your backup window there. And which other additional sort of files that you want to include in your backup is entirely up to yourself, but the main one's going to be your data files on there. So you'd be taking the backup first of all. I'll just cancel out of mine because you don't need to sit and watch mine do a backup. I have actually got a backup there as well. But then for your archive, you're going to be popping into Tools at the top, Period End, and Archive Company. Now, if you can't see the archive company option on there, this is just going to be down to your user settings. So I'm logged in as manager. You can see that just in the bottom left-hand corner here. If you're logged in with a different username, you might not have the settings to be able to let you take an archive, but the manager can amend that just by going into settings, into user management there. So I can change the description if I want to, and I can change the folder name. The path to the archive always remains the same. It just goes alongside your data there. But I can just pop into here, say before deleting, and just leave it like that. And I can just say OK to that. And you can see that was fairly quick on there. I've got a small local data set, but it is quite quick to take the archive on there. And that's your archive done. Okay, so you can see it doesn't take long to do. And I always say it's better to have the archive and not need it than to need your archive and not have one. So if in doubt, just take that archive. So I'll pop back to my slides. And we're going to have a look at deleting invoices, first of all. And there's a couple of ways that you can remove invoices. So you can do this manually, which we're going to look at in a moment. And you can also use the data management tool, which we'll see a bit later on in the demonstrations. So deleting manually, you can use a filter to help you select records to be deleted, which can just save you time there. You might want to remove invoices prior to a certain date, for example, or before a certain invoice number. So you can apply a filter to only show the ones that you want to delete, highlight them all using the swap and delete option, and then remove them quickly. And we'll have a look at that in just a second. Remember that deleting a record from the invoice and credits module, which has been updated to the ledgers, does not remove the related transactions from the customer activity. It doesn't sort of take it from transactions, and it doesn't adjust your stock either. If you think of it a bit like a record within the invoices and credits module being like a paper copy, like a receipt from a shop, if you were to put that receipt in the bin, the transaction will still show on your bank statement, even though you've gotten rid of that paper copy. So we'll pop into my program so we can have a look at that just to see what I mean by that. So the first place we're going to have a look at, we're going to pop into my invoices and credits module on here. I'll just drag that back to the top, just so we can see the top of my invoices. So the first one that I'm going to show you is one that hasn't been updated to the ledger. So this one here, if we just have a look, so that one, there's nothing in this column. It hasn't been updated to the ledger. So at the moment, this invoice just sits in my invoices and credits module. Hasn't been updated. And by that, I mean it hasn't been posted to transactions. It hasn't updated my customers' accounts on there. And if there was any stock involved, it hasn't adjusted any stock either. So it's a bit like that paper receipt copy. So if I want to highlight that and just delete it, which I can do on there, just confirms that we're just deleting the selected invoices, including those that have not been printed or posted. I'm just going to say yes. And it just takes it out. So number 27 has now gone from there. So nice and easy. So that's just like that paper copy. Nothing else was impacted by that. If I scroll back up to the top and we'll just have a look at invoice number 1. So this one here, we have a look. So this one has been posted to the ledgers. So by that, I mean it's updated the customer account on there, and it's also posted a transaction as well to my transactions module. So we can go and search for that. So it's invoice number 1. If I pop into my transactions module, now you might think, well, how am I going to find invoice number 1 in here? We can click on find at the top and just drag that over because it's opened on my other screen. And I'm going to look for transaction or invoice, sorry, number 1. Now the invoice number, that will populate in your reference column. So you've got different things that'll populate in here. For invoices, it'll be the invoice number. So I'm going to use my drop-down box and I'm going to choose reference. So I want to look for number 1 in the reference column, and I'm going to change this to whole numbers, because if I leave it as any, it's going to pick up ones like 13 because that's got a number 1 in it. And I'm just going to click on find first. Has a bit think, close out of that. So here are our transactions. So we've got invoice number 1. So we've got 2 of them. There was 2 lines on that invoice. I'll show you that in just a moment. So this one and this one, these are my 2 invoices, or my 2 lines from my invoice, I should say. So if I go back into my invoices and credits, I'll just open it so you can see that. Just click on edit so we can open it up. Make that a bit bigger. There, so you can see those 2 lines on there. So those are my 2 lines. These 2 lines have been posted into my transactions module. So if I delete this invoice from here, so if I highlight and delete it, a bit like deleting or throwing away that paper copy. So I've thrown that paper receipt in the bin. I no longer have invoice number 1. But if I go back to my transactions module, they're still showing. So they're still in there. So that's why I like that sort of explanation of to where it comes from. So deleting the invoice from your invoices and credits module won't clear the transactions if it's been updated to the ledgers. So think of it, like I said before, that invoice being the paper receipt copy. If you put that in the bin, put the paper receipt in the bin, the transaction's still going to show on your bank statement, even though you've gotten rid of that paper copy. If you were wanting to remove the invoice with the transaction and adjust the stock, that's going to need to be a correction posting to counteract the posted invoice. There is a great webinar on the recordings page which covers corrections, though, as that's a whole webinar in itself. You can also, if I go back in here, you can highlight more than one if you want to. So you can highlight multiple invoices if you want to and just delete them. So just highlight them like that. I think I was clicking on them and off them at the same time. So there, I've highlighted a few of them and just go to delete at the top. Again, just asks me if I'm deleting all the selected invoices on there. Say yes, and it'll just delete them. So it just removes them. We can also apply a filter. So if you don't want to sit and highlight individual ones, we click on the filter at the top. Looks like I've actually got it populated in here. So these have all got drop-down boxes. So I'm going to select where in the first box, and then I'm going to choose invoice date. There are other things you can select on there if you wanted to. If you want to go by, say, invoice number, I'm going to go by date, and I'm going to say is less than or equal to, and I want to put the 30th of June 2024 in there. And then we can apply this filter. And then if I close out of there, we can see it's just shown those invoices, those invoices in there, the records in here that meet that criteria. What we can then do is at the top, we can click on swap, which will highlight everything for us. And then we can just delete them just by clicking delete. And that's just a quick way of being able to go in and just sort of bulk delete them. And then we can just remove the filter just by clicking on that funnel, and it will bring the rest of those invoices back there. So we've got all the other invoices and credits are now shown there. So I'm going to go back to the slides because I want to talk about the data management tool now as well. So there are recommended levels of data which just make everything run more smoothly in the program there. If you need to check your levels of data, you can look within help at the very top in the middle of your screen and then go to about. And in the middle column under invoices and orders, it'll give you an idea of how many transactions, invoices, customer records, suppliers, things like that you've got in the program. But another great way of being able to do is you can also see from the data management window within your data. So in certain areas, if it's over the recommended level, it'll show you in that moment, how many transactions, how many records you've got there. When I worked on tech support, I did see higher levels than this. So just to point out, it's not a limit, it's just a recommendation. However, large volumes of data, it can slow the processing down. So if you think about if you're trying to take a backup or run a VAT return or run your year end, it can take a lot longer to run, and it can also become harder to find records and transactions when you apply filters because there's so much data to search through. So the recommended levels can make your daily processing as efficient as possible. And when you're keeping historical records for compliance purposes, like I said earlier, it's not essential to store them in your live company. Instead, you can keep regular backups. So if, for example, if you ran month end or the year end, these can be restored at any time if you needed. So if you were being audited, you can restore those backups in. And you can also keep company archives as well, which is a read-only copy of your historical data. I'll be going into that a bit later and just to show you how you can open that as well, just so you can see that in the demonstration too. But it's so much easier to access the archive because you're not having to restore a backup, and you can run reports in there as well. When we're in the data management tool, it'll give you an indication as to where your data sits as well within the recommended levels. So you can see on the screen there on the slide, a green tick means that everything's great. It's within that recommended level. The blue eye means that you're approaching the top of that recommended level, and the orange warning means that you've exceeded it. So the other way to clear out older invoices is to use the data management tool. So we'll pop back into the program and we'll have a look at that. Get my screen back up there. So to get into data management, so if you're logged in as manager, you're going to be going to tools at the top, period end again. And this is where we had that archive option before, but we've got one that says data management. So I'm just going to click on that. Just tells us it's going to close all open windows there. And you get this window here. And it just tells us welcome to the data management. And it just tells us a bit about data management. So in order to make daily processing in Sage 50 accounts as quick and as efficient as possible, we recommend you only store digital records for the current and previous year in your live company data. By removing all transactions and records that you no longer need to view regularly, you'll find that most tasks become much faster, and you can still access your old data by opening an archive or restoring a backup in. And the data management, it just tells you that it takes you through safely removing those old records there. In the compliance, it just lets you know that you need to keep regular backups of your data, which you probably know already. And provided that you have backups and or a company archive, I would always recommend doing both. You don't need to retain historical records in your live company data. So your live company data just really needs to be sort of the recent data that you're using. So when you go in here, if you haven't recently taken a backup, you won't be able to click on continue until you've taken a backup. I've recently taken one, so I'm fine with that. And then again, it does tell us that the archive's optional, but I would always recommend just taking one because, like I say, it's always better just to have one if you needed it. So I'm going to click continue on here. And we can see here that my data, it's a very small data set. So my data is all fine and within the recommended levels there. So I've only got just over 1,500 transactions. The limit's 250,000 for invoices. You don't want any more than about 50,000. And for your suppliers and your customers, you want around about 5,000 each there. So you can see those levels there. So if you've come in here and you've got triangles, you've got those blue eyes on there, then it's a good way of clearing out your old data. But just take that back up first and also take that archive. Then if you put the wrong data in to clear records down from, it's fine. You can just restore it back and do it again. There's no harm done there. So we're going to be looking at the invoices today. So I'm going to click on delete invoices. Doesn't do anything at the moment. It's going to give me another window. And it just tells us that the process will delete the following where the date is on or before the date specified below. And I can type in this window here. I'm going to change it to the 31st of the 12th, 2024, just because I deleted my data beforehand up to June 2024. So I'm now going to go up to the end of December. And it's going to delete any invoices and credit notes dated on or before that date. And it'll also delete any invoice pro formas and invoice quotations from both the quotations module and the invoices and credits module. And I'll be covering deleting the invoice quotations a bit later on. But I just wanted to point out that you can also delete them using the data management tool while we're in here as well. Okay, so there is a little calendar here. You can select the date from there if that's easier. I've just typed it in there. And then once I hit delete invoices, what it'll do is it'll whiz through and it'll clear those out. So any of these prior to this date, it's going to delete them for me. So you see it whizzes through, doesn't take long, tells me how many it's deleted out there for me. If we look in the background, we can see there's 525 at the moment. So if I just click OK to that, close that, that jumps down now. I've only got 329. So we know that it's cleared some of those out for us. So it's a quick way of being able to do it in the data management window. So I'm going to go back to the slides just to have a look at deleting orders there as well. We'll just bring that up there. So sales orders and purchase orders. So those are only available if you're on the professional level of the software. So if you don't have this option, you may be on standard or the essentials version, but bear with me, there is relevant information following this, but I do just need to cover deleting orders too. So orders need to be deleted manually. There's no sort of option within the data management for this, but you can apply a filter and you can bulk delete them that way just to make it a bit quicker as well. When you delete a sales order, if it involves stock on there for it, so any stock that you've got allocated is also removed. And for purchase orders, any stock on order is removed as well, just because you're deleting that order, so the stock no longer needs to be associated with it. So we'll pop back and I'll just show you what that means on there. So when you delete them. So if we go into products and services, first of all on here, and I'm just going to pick on beer for my product. I'm just going to open up, just going to double click on it to open up that particular record, just to show you what we were looking at before. So in the products and services, we've got this record. There is 5 allocated and we've got 7 that are on order. We can click on the little cross and it will tell us, I'll just drag this over here. It will tell us on here. So we've got for on order, and we can see here we've got 5 that are on order, and we can see what this relates to as well. So we can see it relates to these sales orders on here. So we've got, there's only 1 for each sales order that have been allocated. So I know if I wanted to clear this down, I can delete these from here. So what I'll need to do is I'll go into my sales orders module. We'll delete sales order number 2, and we'll just come back and have a look and see how it impacts our product record there. So I'm going to close out with that. Go into my sales orders, and I've got my sales order number 2 here. I'm just going to highlight it, delete it from the top. Just confirms that we're deleting those selected orders, including those that have not been allocated or dispatched. I'm going to say yes to that. And it just deletes that out for us. That's no longer shown in there. If I go back to my product, just double click on it again to open it. We can see I've only got 4 now that have been allocated. If I just click on that to drill down, we can see order number 2 is no longer shown in there. So because obviously the sales order has been deleted, it no longer needs to be allocated on there, hence why it's now removed. That's the same for the purchase orders as well. So if I just drill down on the purchase orders or the on order, it will tell me the purchase orders in here. So we've got these purchase orders here, and that's what's making up this 7. So if I go and say have a look for purchase order number 3, close out with that. Go into my purchase orders on the left. There's purchase order number 3 there. Just going to go to the top and delete it. Again, just confirms that we're deleting it there. Just going to say yes. Back to my products and services. Open up my craft beer product again by double clicking on it. And now we've just got this 6. But drill down on that again. You can see number 3 is removed from there. Okay, so it's just taken it out of there. So anything in purchase orders and sales orders which is on order in any way, when you're deleting it, it's going to amend those figures in there in that product record. Because you're deleting them, you no longer have them on order. You can delete any order regardless of its status though. So if I come out of here, it doesn't have to be things that are just on order. Say for the example, this one here, it's not on order. You can still just delete it at the top, but it's just not going to impact any of the stock there. So it deletes it for you there as well. So that's your sales orders and your purchase orders there. So for quotations, quotations are slightly different in that you can only delete one if it's marked as lost. So we saw earlier that quotations can be deleted using the data management tool. I'm going to now run through deleting them manually as well. There is a quick filter which allows you just to show all quotes that are marked as lost, which would make it easier to bulk delete them. And your quotations also show on your invoices and credits module and sales orders, depending on how you've got them, the system set up just to convert those quotes there. So if you're on the professional level, you might have your quotes set up for once they're marked as 1, they'll convert to a sales order, or you might have them converting to an invoice. Just depends on how you've got that set up. Other levels of the software, because you won't have the sales orders module, they're going to automatically convert to an invoice there. So irrespective of the status, though, you can still delete them from either the sales orders or the invoice and credits module. But I'm going to run through a demonstration on that now, just with it being slightly different. So we'll pop back into my program. Let's bring that up on there as well. So if we go into quotations, just from the left-hand side there, so I've only got 3 showing in here, so it's probably cleared out a few of them when I ran through the data management tool before. But you can see there's a quick filter here. So I've only got 1 of each. I've got a 1, a lost, and an open. But I can filter it. So say I had loads of quotations in here. You could just go into the filter them on lost, and then you could click swap. So you could highlight them all and then delete them. So if you want to just delete them that way, that's going to be a quick way of doing it. Okay, so you've got that quick filter. We just go back to all of them on there. So we just have a look at which ones can be deleted. So if we have a look at this open one, for example, so if I try and delete that, I go to delete at the top, just brings up an information message just saying only quotes with a status of lost can be deleted. So I know I can't delete that. If I highlight my lost quotation, click delete, it'll just say this will also delete the associated sales order or invoice which may have been posted. Do we want to delete that selected quotation? And I'm just going to say, yeah. So I just want to delete that. It's lost. I don't want that in there anymore. And that just deletes fine. We have a look at this one. So we've got quotation here, which has been marked as 1. Again, I can't delete that from here. It's not marked as lost, so I can't delete it from here. But if we go and have a look in our invoices and credits module, because I've got my my quotes set to convert to an invoice on here. If I go and have a look for number 42 in here, drag that back to the top and have a look for so there's my number 42. So that's my quotation that's gone to an invoice. I can delete it from here and it will remove it from the quotations module. So if I highlight it from here, I can go to delete. It'll just say, do I want to delete all selected invoices, including those that have not been printed or posted? I'm just going to say yes. And if I go back into my quotations, you'll see that's no longer shown. I've only got that 1 open quotation there. But as you saw before, they're also deleted when you use the data management tool as well. So if I just quickly create one just to show you, I just go to new and I'll put in the date 2023. So we know we've cleared everything down prior to 2024. And if I just choose just the first account that we've got there, and if I just choose beer, because it was the first one on there, it must be my favorite one that I'm using quite a bit today. And I'm just going to save that. Okay. Just tells me it's entered outside of my current financial year, which I know that's fine because my financial year is 2025 and I'm posting something for 2023 just to show you. So I've got these 2 that are open on there. I've got this one here, which is 2023. I can't delete it from in here. We know that. But if I go back into my data management, which is in tools, period end, data management, just tells us it's going to close all open windows, continue on there. Now, obviously, if you're deleting a lot of things, you'd be taking your backup in your archive. I'm just going to click continue. Go to invoices because it will clear out quotes in here as well. So invoice quotations. And I'm going to clear everything out prior to the end of 2023. And I'm just going to say delete just to show you. And it tells us that 1 has been deleted. And that is going to be the one that we've just created there. So I'm just going to say OK to that. Close out of these windows. We'll just pop back to quotations. And if I just pop it back on all of them, and there you can see the only one I've got now is from 2026. So if you've got lots of them in here and you think, oh, I just want to clear them out, you can use that data management tool as well. Now back on the subject of the archiving as well there. So we took an archive before we started all of this. We just go back into invoice and credits. And if we have a look here, so we've got 327 invoices showing in here. Now, the reason it's a good idea to take an archive is because obviously we've deleted quite a bit there, you can see. I've taken an archive, and what we can do is we can just pop back into the archive just by going to File at the top, Open, and then choosing Open Company Archive. Now, if you can't see that, just remember it'll be down to your user settings. So if you're not logged in as manager, or if your user setting doesn't have the access of being able to open the archive, your manager username can change that. And I'll be showing you that more in depth tomorrow as well on the company archive webinar. So make sure you get signed up for that one. But remember when I popped in mid-year before deleting 2025, so that's the archive that I took earlier. I'm just going to say open to that. And if you think about if you had lots and lots of data and you'll think, oh, I need to restore a backup in, if you've got other people logged in, you might have to ask people to log out. Now you need to pop in your username details again when you're opening an archive. But if you're having to restore a backup in, depending on how your data's set up as well, if it's on a server, it could take a while, but it's as quick as that. I'm now in my company archive. You can see at the top, it says archive along the company name as well. It tells me which one I'm in. But if I go to invoices and credits, and have a look at the invoices now, I'm back to where I started at the very beginning of the webinar when I took that archive. I've got 544 in there. So they're all still there, they're just not in the live data. So the live data is more manageable now. It's not a huge data set, which just makes things a bit easier. And you can see how quick it was just to get in the archive. Pop back to the live data. We're just going to go to File and then Open Company Data. It just tells us it's going to close all those open windows. And it's as simple as that. Just log back in and you're back into your live data. So it's really, really quick way. So it really is a good idea to be taking that archive there. So there's one other thing that I want to mention when you're clearing out records as well. So I'm just going to pop back to my slides there just to cover compressing your data. So following deleting records, and just to reduce the size of your data files, you're going to need to compress the data. And the best way to explain compressing the data is that, say you've got a bookcase and it's full of books, and you remove some of those books and the ones that are left are just scattered all over the shelves. What compressing the data does is it neatly puts all the books to one side, and then it gives you rest of that space as free space. So it just tidies it all up in the background. If you delete a record from your invoice list, the size of your data file, it doesn't reduce until the invoice ledger is compressed. So what I'd always say is just ensure that you've got an error-free backup prior to running this routine as well. But I'll show you in my system. And remember, it'll be really quick in mine. I've got a small local data set. So when we run through it in my system, if you blink, you'll miss it on there. But you, like I say, you only need to do this if you're sort of clearing out your records there. So to compress it, we're just going to go to File at the top, and we're going to click on Maintenance, and you'll get this window here. And you might have seen this before when you're checking your data or just reviewing your last check of data as well. But in the top right, you've got data compression, and it says if you've previously deleted large amounts of data, run this option to reclaim disk space used by those deleted records. And when you click on compress the data, you will get this window, and it looks like you can't tick anything. All we need to be doing is just unticking that, and it allows you to then just tick the areas that you've compressed. Okay, so what I would say is just compress the areas that you've ran through and you've removed things from. So if I've gone invoices, sales orders, purchase orders on there, if you compress everything, it can take a little while depending on how much data. If you've got a lot of data still, it'll take a little while to run. So my advice would just be to compress the areas that you've been working on there. So I'm going to go with invoices, sales orders, and purchase orders. And I'm just going to click compress. And you can see it was ridiculously fast on mine. You might get a little toolbar that just goes across, just telling you how far along, but it doesn't take that long to compress the data. But it'll take a little bit longer than that if you've got more than just over 1,500 transactions. So I'm just going to say OK to that. And that's compressing the data. So really, really quick and simple as well, but definitely worth doing just to reclaim that disk space there. So clearing out your records, as I mentioned at the start there, it's completely optional. You're under no obligation to complete those. It's more just practice for good housekeeping, really. Clearing out older data may allow you to work more efficiently in your data set as well. So if you've got a large data set, And you can check that, like I said before, using that data management tool we looked at earlier when you're logged in as manager or a user with full access. If you got over the recommended levels, you might find that clearing out allows the program to work more efficiently because it's not having to search through and process as many records. Like I mentioned earlier, though, if you are experiencing those speed issues, just bear in mind there could be external environmental factors also impacting those processing speeds. And I can't stress it enough, always just ensure to take a full backup and ensure you've got an archive prior to clearing the records. It just means if you put the wrong date in to clear the things down from, you can just restore it back and do it again, no harm done. Records are only going to clear if they meet certain criteria as well there. So they need to meet sort of that particular criteria, and that's more for your customer and your supplier records rather than your invoices. Your quotations, like you saw, they need to be marked as lost there. And compressing the data allows you to reclaim that disk space, which means Sage is tidying up things, so it takes up less space on your computer. And I've just popped on some useful links here as well. So these are things that we've continued. We'll run through these in the demonstration there. So things like just tidying up your data after the year-end process, but removing unwanted quotations, invoices, and credits or orders there as well. And it covers that compressing the data too. There's also the Sage Help Centre, which we've popped on there as well. And I'll keep this open for a little while longer as well, just for any other questions that are coming through there. Don't forget, you're also going to get a recording of today's session in around about an hour's time by email. So if you want to watch it back at your own pace, you can do that, as I appreciate there can be a lot to take in when you're watching it for the first time. And this is why we send out the recordings. Just means that you can have another look if you need to. You can also access our webinars page as well. It's sage.co.uk/webinars. All the past recordings there are free to view in here, along with signing up for upcoming webinars as well. The link is just on the slide for you there too. And we've also got the Community Hub as well, which if you haven't seen that before, it's an online forum for Sage 50 accounts users just to share knowledge, swap ideas, and solve problems together. It's free to join. You can ask questions where other users, along with Sage experts, can help and advise you, along with if you know the answer to something, you can pop things on there as well. But you can keep up to date with what's happening, and it's open 24/7. There is a link there which takes you straight to the hub on there as well. I've also included an additional survey, which I hope you won't mind taking a look at. Just helps our shape our learning there around what matters to you most. There is a QR code which you can scan on there, and there's a link on the slide there too, which when you've downloaded those slides, you'll be able just to click on that link there. But I'll leave that QR code open just for a while, just while I have a look just to see if there's any questions that are coming in there as well, because I can see a few have come in there. So I can see there's a question coming in there. Do you need to re-index the data? So yes, once you've compressed the data, it's then going to ask you to re-index it on there. So once you've compressed it, it'll ask you to re-index it. Just click yes to that as well. It's just the tidying up process in the background. But like I mentioned there with the bookcase, with all of the books, it's just putting them all into order there. So yes, once you've done that, if you then re-index the data as well. But that does bring us to the end of today's session. So I hope that you found that useful. Any questions that we haven't been able to cover, and see there's a couple that are outstanding on there. I'm going to pop you an email over straight after the end of the webinar here as well. So you will get a survey when leaving today's session. So I'd love it if you could fill that in there. If you've got any feedback or any comments around what you would like to see. And Kelly, I'll get back to you just with that regards that. And see, you've got an outstanding question on there. So I'll pop you an email straight over after the webinar there. But for now, thank you for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.